Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
Awesome.
Cool. So do you want to introduce yourself to start to the audience so we know a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Ashley. I am an energy intuitive and transformational guide. I actually have this really beautiful download that I've received from Spirit to be able to access the chakras energetically. And so I love helping people work with their energy mastery and attune their own energy to their soul's frequency.
Awesome. Love
Yeah.
it. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because that sounds so awesome, and it's weird because I have something similar that kind of happened to me. So I'm really excited to hear about your experience with that, with the chakras. Like what sort of
Awesome.
happened? What
Uh,
happened? I'm interested.
yeah. So is it okay if I share my story of how
Yeah,
I kind of
yeah, yeah. Go
evolved into
for.
it?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, go
So
for.
how it evolved was I've always been intuitive as a kid. Like I grew up just like hiking in the woods and just really connecting with the earth elements. And I knew from a young age that I was intuitive, but of course, like I had kind of lost that throughout, just like being involved with,
Oh yeah.
society and everything. And so I was, for some reason, I had this really amazing karmic contract that served me in my life. And so I was married for 5 years. We were together for 7. And through that process, it took me through a huge transformational journey of awakening back to who I already was as my
Oh
soul. And
wow.
it took me through all of these lessons. And I remember being at an event with one of my teachers, and I just remember like having a huge download through my crown chakra, just opening me up. And ever since that had happened, it was just a huge emotional release, and I was able to tap into the subtle energetics around me. So I was able to do this from a young kid, but when I was really like at the breaking point of the relationship and knowing that my soul needed to expand outwardly, was a time where it was almost like a heartbreak. My heart broke wide open, and it just allowed like the divine universe to come pouring through my heart, and it
Oh
was so
yeah.
amazing. So my first download that I received was straight through my crown chakra, and it just kind of spiraled through. Really
Oh
funny because I had
wow.
an experience like that last night with the full moon energy. And so ever since then, it was like a trickling down of the energetic attunement in my body. And so they just started to open up, and I could, I had to learn how to discern what was my energy coming through and then what was other people's. So
Oh,
I took a lot of
absolutely.
mastery to figure out like, okay, like what's my energy? So being like isolated in nature, what's my energy? What's my natural blueprint? And then learning how to navigate working with other people's energy and how having them really understand their own energy when I was working with them. So that was kind of like the first greater awareness that I had when it was received. And so it was just a constant exploration. And it took me a while to find a few teachers that like I could really resonate with. Even like yoga teachers and energy like Reiki masters um, who I had known at the time didn't have any guidance for me because they just didn't know how to like work with that energy. And so I like to kind of think of it as like energy medicine beyond Reiki, because we're really working with like the subtle energetics in its purest form. So
Love it.
that
So
was kind of my journey. It's super, super fun.
that's awesome. And I also can like relate to you in like many different ways. Obviously, our journeys were very different, but the whole like psychic extrasensory thing and then like kind of like losing yourself and coming back to it later, I can definitely relate on that page with you. So that brings me to my next question. How do you know a teacher is right for you, and what makes them right for you, or like what makes them, that like click moment you have with a teacher that's like they bring you that thing that you didn't even know you need kind of. How can you help people find that, or what do you suggest for people looking for that?
I definitely like I've always appreciated mentors and people who have come into my life at like beautiful timings. I just I truly believe that like people and like your soulmates, like whether it's like
Yeah,
friends or mentors or relationships, they'll come into your life at the most perfect timing. It's like
totally.
we think that our humanness like has like so much control over it, but like honestly, like our souls are doing so much work up there. Like
Yes.
like they're orchestrating so much more than we could ever imagine. And so when we're able to like surrender and like let the subtle magic happen, then we're able to be acutely aware of like, oh hey, like this person feels really good, I feel like I have so much to learn from them, or hey, like I feel like this energy really flows together. So it's really
Oh
just
yeah.
like trusting the connection and like noticing in your body if it's coming from a place of um, heart-centered like groundedness and like anchoring of like, wow, like I genuinely want to like learn and connect with this person, or if it's a projection of like, oh my gosh, like I totally wish I could be like them, or I
Yeah,
like kind of like seeing the
yeah.
projection outside of yourself and like kind of like hoping for that attainment, versus oh my gosh, like this, I really see this person's heart, I really want to connect with them. So that would be the key difference of the like subtle energetics of connecting with people.
I love it. I think that's really good advice for people. And I think that it's so important to keep in mind because sometimes we have people come along our path and it's like we're idolizing them or something. And it's like
Right.
we don't actually need to work with them necessarily. We're just like, we need that moment of like, okay, I'm idolizing them, but it's like, let's bring that back to myself and see like why I can be that amazing or like why I have that energy in my own way, kind of.
Right, totally.
So,
It's completely natural, I think, to have like projections, especially with like people who are really following their soul's path and doing all those amazing things.
yes.
And sometimes it's more of like a reflection of like, oh hey, like I can actually do that too. It's more of like whatever you see in that person is like what your soul's kind of asking you to exhibit within your own being so that you can kind of like reach that energy level as well. So like even if it does happen, the projection, like it's okay to not be so hard on yourself because it's like a natural thing that happens, you know? So I think it's
Totally
okay.
agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. So, can you tell us like exactly what you do with your clients and like how did you develop your like niche? Like how did you like know what your niche was and how did it kind of like bloom into that?
Yeah, I love that question. So um, I started off I started off teaching yoga and doing massage, and I started off with that as my foundation. So I had a really strong foundation in the holistic healing arts, working a lot with nutrition and things like that. And the more and more that I was in holistic health and healing, I really discovered that it doesn't matter how many times clients would like take a yoga class or come to massage if they didn't really address what was on their heart.
Oh yeah.
So tuning into their emotional states, tapping into the subtle energetics that were happening within their being. And so the most exciting thing for me was really like pulling out the roots of their own subconscious and reintegrating them so that it was in alignment with their soul. And it started off, honestly, very truthfully, like in my own being. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition and I was doing all the right things. I was taking yoga, I was doing massage, I was, you know, receiving massage and eating like awesome things nutritionally. But I was still diagnosed with an autoimmune condition when I was 22. I was like,
Oh no.
what the heck? Like, what? I was like, this doesn't make any sense in my rational mind. And so I started to dive into soul work and energy work. And I started to really create a beautiful relationship with her and started to like notice where my energy was going. And so that was the initial like transformation that had happened for me, was when I had decided to step into energy healing and soul work. That was what had healed me. So that's kind of like what led me to start on that path of like changing from traditional like holistic health from yoga and massage to transformational coaching and energy healing. Um,
Awesome.
and so, yeah, how I typically work with clients is I honestly love working with like clients for like at least 3 months, just because there's only so much you can do in one session. And so, yes, I do like one-on-one sessions.
Feel you on that.
Yeah, but like transformation is like not like a one and done thing. So like I truly love working with clients for at least 3 months. I definitely do have clients that I work with 6 months, and it's complete, like total transformation. And so when I'm working with them, whether it's in person, online, first we address like their energetic body, like what's happening energetically, what's happening mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and really like bringing the awareness and kind of doing like an emotional like feng shui, and working with that. I also do a lot of like shamanic Reiki. So literally like pulling out like energetic cordings from their energy.
What is shamanic Reiki? Now I'm curious.
So this was something that I had actually like was passed down to me from like past lives. And so it's essentially what it is like finding the roots within the energetic body and almost like imagining that there's like spider webs in like our energetic body. And so it's literally like imagine like pulling up like cords from like, let's say your fingernails to like all the way to your heart, and just working with the energy kind of like as if you're pulling up weeds. And so it's a very much like earthly, like it's best to be in nature, surrounding with nature. And usually I'll go back in and fill back up the veins with like rose water, and just like love and pour it back in. So it's very much a practice that I'll do with my clients to help them with traumatic events that they've experienced in their lives. And just really like I find a lot of it comes out through the solar plexus, and so that'll be kind of like the gateway to like let everything release from. So
yes, love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what is the main thing that you think that people need collectively right now that you've been working with to kind of open up those channels? Like, what is the main advice or message or wisdom that you can give to people that you've noticed like collectively that kind of everybody needs right now as like an ascension thing, and just like awakening to your own kind of embodiment and core blueprint and stuff?
Yeah, so what I'm energetically tapping into is we're going through, I mean, obviously we're going through a big transformation. And so there's a lot of emotional spirals that people are falling into, and kind of getting lost in fear-based thoughts. And so the best piece of advice that I can give is to tap into the energy of, it's okay if things are lost. It's okay if things are completely and utterly destroyed. It's okay if everything falls apart, because when everything falls apart, your soul gets to integrate it back in and thread it together in the way that like is of integrity with your soul and true embodiment. And I really believe that what we're moving into is just, it's once in a lifetime kind of thing, where like we've really come to Earth at this specific time to really move through this ascension process. And everyone has their own soul path, and not to say that like it's right or wrong to pursue this path of awakening or ascension, but for each individual to like honestly like just let go of like honestly just like let it like roar through you, just like let everything just drop if you can. Like there's true freedom in just letting go of what's no longer serving you energetically, physically, emotionally, mentally. So the energy of destruction in the most loving way. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So one thing I just want to bring up quickly is like I can like feel your auric field, and it's just like infused with like this light energy, and it's just like so open and clear and spacious. And like I know that someone is like really walking their walk when I like can feel it in like the auric level, because there's such a huge difference on like the energy levels of a person when they're saying something but they're living another thing, you know what I mean? And
Totally.
I can feel it in your embodiment, and that's just so awesome. Like I know when I get on with a light worker and I can feel it like on those deep levels when I'm working with them or just talking with them, interviewing them, it's like, okay, yes, this person is like, she's doing it, she's out there doing it, she's living it. And it's just such a huge difference, and it's such a download just to be in a light worker space and energy like that.
Yeah.
Like that alone is the shift. That's what I really found, is just like getting on with someone like that or talking to someone like that, being in their environment, their space, you know, for someone who needs that block, that's like a shift alone. Just like being there.
Yeah, honestly, likewise, sister. It's really like, it's so beautiful to be like connected with such beautiful, beautiful women who are really like
Yes.
diving into this work and really being fully expressive with it. And I truly honor like the work that you're doing. And I like, yeah, honestly, you don't even have to say anything. You can just feel it. So it's like,
Exactly. Yes. Okay,
and it's cool
cool.
when like the two souls are like coming together and like having fun, like communicating, and
Yes.
like our souls are just
Yes.
having so much fun. So.
All right, guys, we're having a telepathic party here, but like you're all invited, so come on now.
Yeah, oftentimes when I often do like coaching with like other women who are energy workers, and when we're connecting, it's like just reminding like yourself that like your presence alone like is enough. You know, like, yes, like the
Yes.
work, the tools, the systems that we share are so important, but like honestly, just your presence alone is like purely enough. So,
So I was totally just talking about this the other day. I was talking with my mom in the car, okay? And I was like telling her how like she doesn't have to do or be anything or like achieve something
right.
specific to be in her purpose, that like she's just enough by living and breathing and like putting out that energy and like just being the fucking amazing mom she is and just being the person she
Aw.
is.
Yeah.
And like I could just see that like click and download in her, and she's like, you know, the spiritual community is so clouded with this idea of this spiritual purpose that you have to like go out there and be serving and doing something specific, and like you can do that stuff and it makes a huge change, but it's like it sucks when people think that they're not enough because they haven't stepped into that fully yet.
Right.
So what message do you have on like that level of things, or what can you say to people on like in terms of like their purpose and stuff like that? Like how
Oh,
would
I
you
love that. I love that. I honestly like, so if you imagine a flower, like when you plant the seed, when you have the intention of um, going into your soul's direction, your soul's path, when you make the decision to plant the seed, it's going to take growth. It's going to grow over time. And the seasons that it goes through is the seasons of transformation that it experiences. And so, yes, of course, it's going to blossom. The end result, it will be there. But like, enjoy being like a baby little like seed, and just like enjoy your growth, enjoy the process of just learning and growing. And like, when the flower does blossom, it blossoms not only for the flower, but it blossoms for everybody else
Yes.
to experience. So like, it's okay if you're not like there like at self-actualization already, you know what I mean? Like your whole life is like just like this weaving path of experience and growing, and like there's no one straight path to it. And so just like following like the totems, like I was like just up north like over like the weekend and following my soul, and just had no plans at all, but just I kept finding like little like eagle feathers everywhere I went, or
Oh my
like bird
god,
feathers.
I love
And so
that.
anytime I was like on the right path, it was like I would, when I parked, I would find like a little like feather, and I was like, wow, like
That's so
definitely a totem.
beautiful.
So like follow the, like you might not know the 10 steps ahead, but follow just that one step. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes it's like going through the dark, and really like honestly we have to like empty ourselves completely of who we've thought ourselves to be in this physical world, who we've um, thought, who we thought we were, to be who we can truly be and become the essence that we really are. And so there's a lot of like just emptiness, I think, that happens in that path of just like great humility, but like deep compassion for like just the beings on earth, and like, yeah, just having fun. Like earth is like such like a playful child, and so when we can connect into like that playfulness and that joy, we just let go and have fun, and yeah, serve people, yeah, be happy, but like, you know, it's all okay, you know. So
I love those like moments or that energy, like when you've been listening to your soul, you've been dealing with like the shadows, the emotion, and like you've been like really real with yourself. But because of that, you're free enough to just enjoy life to its like highest fucking levels. And I feel like whenever I'm clearing myself out and I'm being honest with myself and I'm doing the fucking work, that is like the moments of like the most joy or like the most like freedom that I feel afterwards. And it's like just like that complete alignment with the earth herself, and just like that, like those feelings of like just being connected to the sky and the water, and like those moments where you're like there's no separation between my body and the earth. It's like I am the earth, and like those are those moments of just pure freaking bliss.
Love that. Yeah, so good.
Oh my god, and we're having such synchronistic moments, because I totally did the whole like you said it in such a beautiful, unique way, but the part about like the seed and the flower, like I was totally using that as an example yesterday too, and I was like, oh my god, yeah. And like you said it in your own beautiful, unique way, but I was just like, oh my god, synchronistic, yes, love it.
That's amazing.
Awesome, yes. So do you use your psychic abilities when you're working with clients, and how does that work? Like what's like the union between like the sort of coaching and the work that you do and like just like being naturally psychic and stuff? Like how do you bring that into your sessions?
So first off, I work with people to understand how to connect deeper to their soul, because there's different levels of like soul relating. So we have our relationship with ourself and our soul, and then we have our relationship with our human to other people's souls, and then ourself to our soul. And then our souls are also having a communication too. So there's different levels of relating and different levels of communication. And so when I'm working with my clients, it's always about tuning into their soul and tuning into their guides. And I literally get pressure like in my ears when they're communicating with me, and I'm like, okay, like this is important. And it's kind of like I'm communicating with their guides in a way that are like synchronistic, and just letting like the information kind of like flow out without filtering, and letting it just be what it is. But most of the time when I'm working with people, I'm really acting as a mirror. It's not about what I'm saying per se, but it's really like helping them see their own consciousness, and really like giving them space to open up in that way. And yeah, honestly, like for me, it's less about me per se, and it's more about how can I help them, how can I serve them,
love it.
So that they can see in the mirror like a very clear like picture, because oftentimes it's really hard to do by ourselves.
Oh yeah.
So like it's hard to see by ourselves, and that's why relationships come into play too. In terms of the energetics, I'll often get visuals, or I'll often feel where they're energetically stuck, and so I'll actually like feel physically in my own body, or I'll actually see images of like the energy patterns if they're talking about a relationship, or if they're feeling stuck in some aspect of their life. I'll see like their relationship with themselves and then with another, and then how like possibly like, so with one of my clients, she had like in a relationship, her sacral energy was actually getting poured into her boyfriend's, and then he was using that energy as in terms of his expression. So the energy was kind of circling through from her sacral to his sacral, and then circling from like the fifth chakra and then out to her. And so it was just like a cycle. But like I find that when we're relating heart to heart, there is no kind of, we don't lack energy. So like the only energy I believe that like truly is like connecting from person to person is when we're connecting to the heart space, because it's coming from that divine space. But when we're connecting with other people and it's coming from our other energy centers, then it's kind of getting drained per se, and almost like an energy leak. So I help them see where their energy leaks are, and helping them kind of redirect the energy in a way that they can move it, so that it's best of service within themselves and then for other people. So
Love it. Absolutely love it. So, okay, so one thing that I notice sometimes when I work with clients is like that energy of like they're looking up to you, but like in a way that where they kind of feel like you're doing the work for them, or they feel like you're like some sort of like pill or button that they have to take every time they get to that energy level. And like I feel like there's like this like split between the guru and like, hey, I'm just being a mirror to empower you in your life. So
right.
how do you specifically give that message to your clients, the people you work with, to empower them and show them that like, you know, I'm just like a mirror for you, man. Like I have something specific to offer. I'm my own person. I have like this unique gift, obviously, that I came here to serve people in this way. But like, how do you like really like bring it back to like, you know, I'm empowering you, but you're also empowering yourself. Like I'm holding space for you to empower yourself, kind of.
Right. So I think it's really the encouragement of letting them know that like every single person has like this unique gift. And I think this is like pretty standard. Like many people know that we all have gifts.
Yeah.
But it's really like helping them unravel their gifts. And so giving them the tools, and like if they're like going through despair, it's like asking them reflective questions like, if you did know what to do in this moment, what would your soul say? Like if you did know, like what would your soul say? Like so anytime that they're going through like the turmoil, going through the depths of the dark night of the soul, it's like really showing them that they really do have the answers. And I'm just a clear guidance to like help them through that process. And I love it because I can see like the different patterns that are happening. And so like I can just help guide them. So it's really like letting them know that like I'm here to guide you and I'm here to be with you, but you are just as beautiful and you're just growing and blossoming into the person that you're meant to be. And like, yeah, just holding that space of just love and compassion. So not trying to like play the game of like, you know, I'm here and you're here, but like
exactly.
really like seeing like eye to eye, like I see you and like I love you, and I'm here to help you. So yeah.
So what's that like breakthrough moment when you have with your clients that like warms your heart the most or brings you the most passion? Like what's that moment when it's like that fulfillment of like I'm actually helping this person and changing their life? Like what is that breakthrough moment? How can you describe it for people?
How I describe it is when people really step into their true embodiment. Like you can kind of tell when people are talking from a space of like their personality, their ego. Not to say that the ego is bad. I totally honor it. But like when you can feel their true like essence just like bursting out from the seams, like that's when I feel like I've definitely served at my highest level, is like really like when they just exude their soul's embodiment. And like, yeah, like it comes in and out, like we're human, right? But like, for them to just really like let that like pour into their hearts and just like see the pure love and compassion come through.
And like what I love to say to my clients is like when you've met that heart connection or you've met that soul alignment, it's like even if you stray from that path, like you'll always know how to find your way back. Like once you have that first couple of real alignments, you'll catch yourself and you'll come back to that, and you'll always be able to find your way home after that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely like it's the journey back home, right? So we often have this identification around what home means and where it is and where it's located, and am I safe in my body, or can I be safe in this environment? And so when we're tapping into the soul connection, it's like that is what we were searching for the whole time. So
love it. So when you're kind of like collectively like looking like outside of like people who are coming into awakening and like just like people who haven't really like fully awakened or fully had that like click moment, like what's your advice for people who want to like help awaken like everyone in like a sense where it's not like forcing spirituality on them, but it's just like, I want them to feel love, I want them to know it's okay. Like what's your tip for like getting the energy out there into the collective of like people who maybe don't know what spirituality is and maybe don't really understand this stuff yet, but like they still deserve love and awakening and like all that good jazz.
That's a great question. So this is something that I've definitely had to experience since I've actually come home. I've been on a journey of connecting with my ancestral roots. And so, so I've been really connecting in with my ancestral roots and like really like DNA, like kind of like work and everything. So it's been fun. And so it's brought me on this journey back home and visiting, connecting with my family. And on the East Coast where I am, it's like there's a lot of like dense energies here. And I don't mean that in a way of like darkness. It's more of like just just unawakened beings.
I know what you mean.
And so like I'm coming from like Hawaii and like West Coast, and so it's more like more poppin'. And so coming back home, it's like, wow, like how can I really integrate this into my current reality? And so I find that even if I don't speak anything spiritual with them, or even if I don't like, you know, say anything like of what we're speaking of now, it's like, how can I speak their language and still just come from a heart-centered place?
Love it. Yeah.
And not change who I am, but like speak to them in a way that they'll understand my language. So yeah, I think it's just really like exuding your own auric field, exuding your soul's embodiment and letting that do the talking, because that will actually initiate the transformation within themselves, whether they know it or not, because they'll recognize that within themselves too. And so you just like we said earlier, you just being you, like that's all you can do.
And like I know that like specifically when I'm like feeling down or feeling like whatever within myself, and like I meet someone who's just like they're in the flow or they're feeling good, I like that always clicks me back into myself. So like I feel like that's kind of just like that magnet that you kind of need, where it's like, okay, they're just like being this like presence of love, and like that's enough, and it kind of just sparks people awake from just being that clear energy, that clear centered energy.
Yeah, definitely. I remember like when I was living in Santa Monica, I had this experience. I was going to a coffee shop, and this one guy was outside, and he looked like he might have been a monk, but he wasn't like dressed as a monk, but like he was, you know, bald and everything, and like you could tell that he was just in the practice of you know, that kind of that religion. And so when me and my friend were walking out, like we just had this experience where like we couldn't ignore this one dog. This dog was exuding like the most unconditional love that I've ever seen in my entire life. And so we started to pet the dog, and we looked up at the owner, and we nearly started crying. He didn't like, we just had small talk conversation, but like the amount of like energy that was being transferred was unreal. Like when we left that like situation, we just like sat in my car and was like, we just like sat there for like 5 to 10 minutes, and just like we were so mind blown by the amount of like unconditional love that he was like transmuting. And so like whenever I think about just like beingness and just being in your energy and like tuning into that frequency, like I think of that man who I met in Venice. So I was like, oh my gosh, like that's true embodiment, like true just love like pouring through. So yeah, that's kind of what I think of.
So one thing that I'm really like seeing in like the spiritual community is like this energy of people thinking that you need to know what spirituality is to like be that essence of love and embodiment and enlightenment. So like how can you like describe that for people or give that message that like you don't just need to know what spirituality is to be that embodiment of love or awakening or being in your soul essence. Like I've really noticed that like it's not about knowing that it's a multidimensional universe and that we're all spiritual beings. Like that stuff's important and it just kind of comes along with like enlightenment, but like there's a lot of people who know that stuff and they haven't even come into their heart space yet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you mean in the spiritual community, not coming into
Yes,
the heart space
yes,
yet?
yeah.
Um, yeah, so let me tap in. Yeah, so what I'm seeing is like a box, and so what I'm seeing is like the idea of like people having to fit in this certain mold of like what things need to be or look like. And so
Yeah.
when you can just break those barriers and just like experience life the way that you feel like you want to experience it without like following any dogma of like, oh, I have to be this certain way to fit into this. Yeah, so like what I'm getting is like it really falls into like tribal roots. Like, what are you like, how are you acting, or how are you like being, so that you can connect into the community that you want to like be with. And so it's really like honoring who you are and like knowing that it's okay if like things fall apart, it's okay if things fall away. So because when that happens, they're just going to come back together again. So yeah, it's like letting yourself out of like the square box that you identified yourself in to fit into a certain ideal or community or tribe.
Hell yeah, awesome.
Yeah, even like spiritual tribes, you know. So it's
Definitely.
we're constantly like connecting in, and there's so much transformation happening right now. So like we haven't really found like our groundings yet, I think, collectively, because there's so much transformation happening. And so knowing that it's okay that you haven't found that yet, and or even if you have, it's okay if things change. Just knowing that like we're in this huge big transformation, and the best thing that you can do is like really stay true to yourself regardless of where you're at or what community you're connected to.
Absolutely, yes. Love it. Is there like a specific topic or something that you kind of like want to close out with or like talk about or bring up? I'm kind of leaving it in your cards. Is there something else you want to bring up?
I would love to ask you how the energy of the full moon has really transitioned for
Yes.
you. This was a really, really big energy coming through, and I would love to hear your experience of what's coming through for you.
Awesome. Yeah. Let me just like sort of like tune back into, because for me, like I was really tuning into the full moon energy like 2 days ago, and sometimes
Yeah,
it kind of feels like every day is like a year gone by almost sometimes.
I
Do you know what I
know. Oh
mean?
my gosh.
It's like, okay, let me
Totally.
get back to that. Okay. So this full moon for me was like very much just like an energy renewal and like an energy like booster. Every full moon for me kind of like feels like this like huge like download of energy, like very much. Each time it's very different. And like before the full moon, I was kind of like clearing stuff and like all these shadows were coming up. And then like the full moon day, it was just like super alignment, like one thing after another, and just like kind of like one of those days where you were just like in that flow. And I feel like this like full moon just kind of brought in like just like be your true potential and just live your true potential and just like stop like worrying or thinking of like all the different like stuff that you have to like do, or like trying to find like a perfect way to do things, or like kind of just like breaking down my like OCD and being like, look, just like get out there and do it, and just like bring your energy in and keep on going at it. Like that's what this full moon's really like bringing in for me, is just like keep on like just going for your dreams. And like it's okay if you fall over, and it's okay if like it doesn't turn out exactly the way you want it to, but just like keep getting out there and just doing it and just living. And it's kind of also just like be in the present moment. Like you have your future goals, you have things that you want to accomplish and stuff, but it's like every day fucking matters, and like every moment matters, and like just being in this present flow just matters. So that's really kind of like what that like Pisces slash Virgo energy, because so like Pisces is in the moon and then Virgo is in the sun right now. Am I correct on that one?
Yes.
Cool, cool. So, and it's funny because I have that opposition between Pisces and Virgo within my astrology too. So it's like
Oh, cool.
it was kind of like that big wake up moment for me.
That's amazing. Wow. That's a huge, huge breakthrough, it feels like.
Yeah, for sure. How did it I forget if we already talked about this, but how did it affect you, or how did the full moon come in for you?
Yeah, so it was kind of like over time, like whenever I experience like the full moon, especially one like this, it's kind of like spread out through a couple days. And so especially like the day before, the day of, and the day after, so the 3 days. And so how I was experiencing it was like the very first of those 3 days, I was like really in a lot of other people's vortex. I was like at a racetrack with like my sister and just like around like thousands of people. And so it was really like the experience of like just being in like a high network of people. And so it was like really like connecting into like that frequency and really like seeing like what we had talked about, like really like seeing people, even if they're not like awakened in themselves, and but just like seeing them, and just like every experience I got to like just like really like understand this human experience even more. And so that was a really cool like experience. The second night, the night of the actual full moon, I was just completely in nature and just connecting with moon energy. I just love like hiking. I just, no plans, just went hiking, and all of these things kind of came up in my being, and just pure bliss, pure ecstasy. And then last night, I had just like a personal ceremony, and then I was helping my mom through a lot of her own things. And it was really beautiful just to like witness the people in my life going through their own awakenings and going through their own like experience. And I had this really profound download last night that like as soon as the moon came up, my crown chakra was like super activated to the point of like it was so fuzzy, like not fuzzy, but it was so intense that like I actually couldn't see that well. So my vision was completely being like altered. And so I'm still kind of processing what that was for me, but it was really profound, and like it felt like kind of just like a new energy kind of coming through from my guides and just like trickling down. So I'm excited to see that kind of expand, and like what the downloads kind of like revealing the gems of like what that was. So it was kind of a process. So.
Okay, so since we're talking about like full moons and astrology, I'm super curious. What are your like top 3 like astrology signs?
Okay. So yeah, for sure. I want to know yours too. So I'm a sun in Libra. My moon is in Pisces.
Nice.
And then my rising is in Gemini.
Ooh, okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So me, okay, so this is weird because I keep on going back and forth between my rising signs because I'm not sure if I was born at 7:30 a.m. or p.m.
Oh.
So I have to get that checked out, but I am definitely Pisces rising and Pisces sun, so it's just like the moon that I'm either a Scorpio or a Pisces times 2.
Yeah. Wow. I have a lot of actually like Scorpio in my chart as well. So mostly like water and air. So
I'm like so water. So I have a lot of earth, but water is like the top one for me. I have like water everywhere all over my chart.
that's amazing.
So like when I tell people that, they're just like, "Oh, you're a Pisces, huh?"
Yeah.
Awesome. So it was so awesome doing this interview with you and talking with you. Is there any like final something that you want to bring in for the audience or whatever? So yeah.
Yeah, so for people who connect to my energy and just like this vibration, we are launching the Awakened Goddess Academy, which is a really amazing transformational journey. It's a group coaching program, really connecting into like-minded sisters, and it's really like a high caliber place where we get to really like people who have already stepped into like their embodiment, and they're looking to master their gifts, and they're really looking to come into this beautiful place of service and really like understanding themselves at a deeper level. And yeah, I'm so excited to launch it. So
okay, I totally have to ask you.
yeah.
It's Awakened Goddess Academy. Can men join?
Unfortunately not.
Okay, I just had to ask. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah, so right now I'm working primarily with women.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but in the future, definitely have like some, like I definitely do like one-on-ones with men, and so if you're
Okay,
interested
cool.
in that, like you're more than welcome to, you know, connect in that way. But yeah, this academy is for women. I think there's something really beautiful
Awesome.
when like women come together and
For
like
sure.
in circle, and it's really like a powerful healing that happens too. So that's
Awesome.
starting
Yeah.
on September 4th.
Oh, there's definitely like a different like empowering energy when it's like just like goddesses or women, and like I feel like it's so important that there's places and like energies where like women can just like relate with each other, because like obviously there's all these different things that a woman goes through that a man doesn't even really know about, and like they have their own stuff. So like someone start like an Awakened like man academy or something.
I know,
I don't
right?
know what it would be called. Awakened Gods.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Awesome.
sure. I think yeah, self, like when we come back to like knowing our true essence, then we can connect deeper with like our male counterparts and really like come into union with them. So like our own like self discovery, our self embodiment is really going to be that key piece to come into like union with our male counterparts, and even like the divine feminine and masculine within ourselves. So I think it's really beautiful to like honor that. And yeah, hopefully the men kind of, you know, create something like that for themselves. I'm sure there's plenty of guys who like are connecting to that space too. So
Awesome. I actually do have a final question for you if you're
sure.
open. So, Her Soul Writes, where did that come from? Can you tell us the birth of Her Soul Writes a little
Yeah, so hersoulwrites came through as me starting off soul journaling.
Okay.
And so the way for me to connect deeper to my soul was literally like I think some people call it automatic writing or things like that. I call it soul journaling. And so it was a constant relationship that I was building with my soul. And after time, it just kind of became like downloads straight from my soul. And so whenever I'm writing, whether it's like online or just in a notebook, it's really like my soul is writing through me. And so it's
Yes.
almost like that essence of like the creativity embodied. So that's
Love
where
it.
Her Soul Writes was born. And yeah, I love that essence coming through, just because it's like a constant reminder that like of just like that warmth and like compassion from my soul of like she's always there, and I get to choose to connect with her whenever I want to.